I was spending a lot of time traveling for work back then, mostly short trips to different cities across Asia. It wasn't glamorous, just constant motion and hotel rooms that all started to blur together. I'd gotten into the habit of buying travel insurance for every flight, mostly to appease my mother. It felt responsible, and honestly, it was a small price to pay for a little peace of mind when dealing with airports and layovers. The breakfast buffet was efficient. Bangkok hotels really nail it. Everything was compartmentalized. Little stainless steel chafing dishes, tongs for each item. I got the usual: scrambled eggs, some fruit, black coffee. I needed the coffee. Jet lag was a beast, even after all these years. I was checking emails, just skimming, when I noticed her again, the woman from reception. She wasn't at the buffet, not exactly. She was standing near the juice station, and she was adjusting the oranges. Not arranging them nicely like a display. She was rotating each orange, a tiny turn, then the next, methodically. Every single orange. It wasn't about making it look good. It was about getting them all facing the same way, a seam or a dimple or whatever she was fixating on, all aligned. I watched for 30 seconds, probably longer. She didn't seem to notice anyone else, just focused. I assumed she was new, maybe struggling with some internal checklist about presentation. Hotel training can be brutal. I'd heard stories. I looked away, finished my coffee, and headed back to my room to prep for the meeting. But it stuck with me. The oranges. The way she'd been with the pens yesterday. I called Kay, my wife, just to hear her voice. "Hey," I said, "everything okay?" "Fine, honey. Just grocery shopping. Why?" "No reason. Just thinking about how much I miss you." Which was true, but also felt like I was trying to anchor myself to something normal, something real. Later, reviewing the expense reports, I noticed a charge I didn't recognize. It was a small charge, under $50. Travel assistance fee, the description read. I dismissed it. Probably just a weird hotel surcharge. They always have those. The charge, it bothered me more than it should have. Not the money, really. It was the principle. And the fact that I couldn't place it. I tried calling the hotel in Bangkok, but the line just rang and rang. I figured it was the time difference, or maybe a bad connection. I scheduled a call with Kay for later that evening. I wanted to hear her voice. I needed to. When I got to the airport in Kuala Lumpur, my phone wouldn't connect to the internet. There was no signal at all. That was odd. I always had roaming data. I thought maybe it was the airport's network, so I tried the hotel Wi-Fi. Nothing. I tried Kay again. It went straight to voicemail. That was odd. She always answers. I was starting to feel off, like someone was watching. I kept glancing over my shoulder. It was a busy terminal, but it wasn't that. It was a feeling. I decided to grab a coffee and find a quieter spot. As I was waiting, I noticed a man across the terminal staring, not directly at me, but in my general direction. He was reading a newspaper, but his eyes kept flicking up over the top of the pages. I changed my gait. My flight had been delayed anyway. I figured if I moved, he'd lose interest. I found a seat near a family with small children, hoping it would be less noticeable, but 15 minutes later, I looked up and there he was, further away, but still there. It wasn't him. Not exactly. It was someone who looked like him. Same build, same dark hair, same intensity in his gaze. Maybe it was just my imagination. Jet lag getting to me. I really needed to talk to Kay. I tried her again. Still nothing. I started to think maybe something was wrong at home. Maybe she was busy, or I don't know. It was just a bad feeling. A really bad feeling. The gate was delayed. Another hour. Fantastic. I paced, trying Kay again. Still nothing. I found a small cafe and ordered a coffee. Black. I needed something strong. That's when I saw him, or someone who looked like him. He was across the terminal, near the magazine stands. He wasn't looking at me exactly. He was looking through me, like I wasn't there. He was talking on a phone, gesturing with his free hand. It was the same way the first one had gestured, that quick chopping motion. I told myself it was coincidence. Kuala Lumpur is a big city. People look alike. But then he hung up, looked up, and he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile, it was tight and knowing, and he started walking, not towards me, but around the perimeter of the seating area, keeping me in his line of sight. My heart hammered. I pretended to read a magazine, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. I kept glancing up. He was still there, slowly circling. I thought maybe if I went to the bathroom, he'd lose me. A stupid thought, probably, but I needed to do something. I stood and walked quickly towards the restrooms. Just as I reached the door, a voice called out, "Sir, sir, your boarding pass, please?" A security guard. He wasn't looking at the man who looked like him. He was looking at me. He held out his hand. And then behind him, I saw another one. Same face, same smile. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. This was organized. They were deliberately blocking my exit. I handed over my pass, my hand clammy. The guard scanned it, his eyes flicking between my face and the screen. The delay announcement blared overhead. I was trapped. They let me go after what felt like 1 hour. Though it was probably less. They just handed the boarding pass back, with no apology and no explanation. I practically ran for the gate, ignoring the stares. I found an empty seat and just sat. I tried to collect myself, my phone. I needed to try K again. Still nothing. Voicemail. I left another message, shorter this time. I just said I needed to talk. It was urgent. I started taking pictures of everything. The gate number, the faces in the crowd, the security cameras. I figured if I could just show someone, anyone, what was happening, they'd understand. I even got a few shots of a guy who looked familiar. Not one of the exact copies, but close. Same build, similar haircut. He was watching me, I was sure of it. He kept looking away when I raised my phone, though. Later, going through the pictures on my laptop at the hotel, I'd managed to get on the flight. Thankfully, I noticed something wrong. Every picture I'd taken of people, every single one, had a weird distortion around the edges, like a heat haze, but digital. I thought maybe it was a glitch with my camera, but it was consistent, every face. And then I remembered Yates, the claims adjuster. He'd mentioned something about image manipulation in the fine print of the insurance policy. He said it was to prevent fraudulent claims. It suddenly clicked. They weren't following me. They were altering the reality around me, making me think I was being followed. It was a psychological test, a way to discredit my claim. That had to be it. A really messed up, invasive test. I tried uploading the photos to show someone, a friend back home, but every attempt failed. Errors, corrupted files, the website just wouldn't accept them. I even tried sending them to Kay, but the messages wouldn't send, they just vanished. I deleted the photos, thinking maybe they were compromised, but the feeling of being watched didn't go away. It just shifted. It became colder, more deliberate. It's been a while. I still think about the airport, of course. Not constantly, not like I used to, but it flares up unexpectedly. I tried to rationalize it for months. Some kind of elaborate insurance fraud ring, preying on travelers. Yates had hinted at it, that murky clause about verifying claims. Maybe they were testing how far they could push someone before they broke. It felt organized in a chaotic way, like a system designed to feel random. I went back to work and tried to pretend it hadn't happened. Kay was amazing, really. She listened, but she couldn't understand. She kept saying I was stressed, that the delay and the worry about the claim had gotten to me. And maybe she was right, to a degree. I started being more careful online, changed passwords, two-factor authentication on everything. It felt necessary. I used to love going to museums alone, always had. Just wandering, getting lost in the exhibits. But the first time I tried, after everything, I couldn't do it. It wasn't the fear of being followed, exactly. It was the space, the high ceilings, the echoing silence, the way people drifted in and out of view. It reminded me too much of the terminal. All that open space, with nowhere to really hide. Now, whenever I'm in a building like that, the Natural History Museum, the art gallery downtown, I automatically scan the faces, not looking for anyone specific, just checking. A quick sweeping glance, taking in everyone around me, habit. I do it without even realizing I'm doing it. Most of the time, I'm standing here now in the lobby of the library, waiting for Jen, and my eyes are already moving. Left, right, left. Just checking. It was a brownstone apartment, one of a long row lining a quiet street. The building felt solid, lived in. The kind of place where people stayed for years, accumulating furniture and routines. I'd taken it because it was close to the subway and had decent light, mostly. I was heading to Europe for a few weeks, a long-planned trip, and needed a temporary base to come back to. It seemed unremarkable then, just a place to keep my things. The chipped formica of the kitchen table felt cool under my forearm. I was making a list, things to do before leaving for the trip, mostly just reminders to stop the mail and arrange for someone to water the ferns. It was peaceful, actually. I hadn't realized how much I needed a few days of quiet. That's when I noticed it again. The bird. It was exactly like the one I had as a kid. Same slightly wonky paint job, same little glass eyes. I'd completely forgotten about it until yesterday, and now here it was, sitting right in the middle of the table. I'd convinced myself it was a leftover from the previous tenant. Maybe a kid had lived here. But that didn't explain the detail. It wasn't a generic wooden bird, it was my bird, or a perfect copy of it. I checked the windows, just a quick glance, locked. Everything was locked. I walked through the apartment, almost retracing my steps from when I got back from the grocery store. Nothing seemed disturbed, no sign of forced entry. Fran from upstairs had mentioned seeing a man carrying a box into the unit next door yesterday afternoon. New neighbor, she said. Older guy, a little stooped, very friendly. He'd offered to help her with her groceries. Maybe he found it somewhere and thought it was cute. Maybe he was just being neighborly, trying to make me feel welcome. It was a weird thought, but less unsettling than the alternative. I put the bird on the windowsill, figuring if anyone asked, I'd know where it was. It looked out of place there. I went back to my list, trying to focus. But the image of that little wooden bird kept flashing in my mind. It was just a coincidence. It had to be. I kept glancing at the bird. It just felt wrong. Facing the window like that, like it was watching for something. I tried to shake it off. It was probably just me, stressed about the trip, overthinking everything. I decided to run to the hardware store for some extra locks, just to be safe. It was an old building, you know. Better to be cautious. On the way back, I thought I saw him. The new neighbor, the one Fran mentioned. He was across the street near the bus stop, and he definitely looked at me. It wasn't a friendly look, not exactly. More assessing. I ducked into Ren's bakery for a minute, pretended to study the pastry display just until he turned away. Ridiculous, I know. It was probably just my imagination. When I got back to the apartment, the hallway smelled like cinnamon. Odd. Fran bakes, but she usually does it later in the day. I unlocked the door, and that's when I heard it. A faint scratching sound coming from inside. It didn't sound like an animal, more deliberate, like someone dragging something across the floor. I froze. My heart hammered against my ribs. I hadn't left anything out of place. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. I pushed the door open slowly, and the scratching stopped. Nothing. Absolutely nothing, except the bird. It wasn't on the windowsill anymore. It was on my bed, right in the center of the pillow, facing the door. I told myself it must have fallen, that the windowsill was too smooth, and it just rolled off. But the bedspread hadn't been disturbed. It was placed there, carefully. I checked all the windows, locked. Every single one. Maybe Fran was playing a joke? A really strange, unsettling joke. I called her, but she didn't answer. I left a message. It sounded shaky, even to my own ears. I think I just said, "Everything okay?" I didn't feel okay. I really didn't. I waited for a call back from Fran. Nothing. I paced. The cinnamon smell was fainter, but still there. It clung to the air like static. I tried to convince myself it was just stress, that I was imagining things. Then I saw it, on the kitchen counter. My wallet. Not just my wallet, but open, and a photo was missing, the one of my grandmother. The one I always kept in the clear plastic slot. My heart hammered. I hadn't even used my wallet since I got back from the hardware store. I checked the door. Still locked. Windows, still locked. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't Fran. She seemed so harmless. Old lady, always offering to help with groceries. I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911 when I heard it. A scraping at the door. Not a key, not a forceful entry, just scraping, like something was being dragged across the wood. I froze. Peeking through the peephole, I saw nothing. just the hallway. But the scraping stopped, and then started again, lower this time, like it was under the door. I backed away slowly, bumping into the table. I thought about running to Fran's, but what if she was involved? Lyle, the super, lived on the ground floor. I started for the door, then stopped. A small package slid under the door. Brown paper tied with twine. I didn't touch it, didn't dare. It was about the size of a book, and I recognized the wrapping. It was the same paper my grandmother used to use for gifts. I suddenly felt sick. This wasn't about my apartment. It was about me. Someone knew things they shouldn't. Maybe it was an ex, someone from back home, finally tracking me down. It had to be. That made some kind of sense. The scraping started again, faster this time, and I smelled it. Not cinnamon, something else. Something metallic, like blood. I didn't think. I just turned and ran into the bedroom, shoving the dresser in front of the door. I huddled behind it, phone clutched tight, waiting for the door to break. It didn't. The scraping stopped. Silence. Then a single slow knock. The scraping, the knock, I stayed put for a long time, just listening. Eventually, the silence felt worse than the noise. It was expectant, like something was waiting for me to move. When I finally did, it was to peek through the blinds. Daylight was doing that thing where it makes everything look normal, even when it isn't. The hall was empty. I called the police. It took a long time for them to get here. A young officer, Wren, mostly just looked tired. I tried to explain the scraping, the smell, the feeling of being watched. She wrote it all down and asked me if I'd been having trouble with anyone. I mentioned Lyle, the landlord, being a bit too interested in my comings and goings, but that felt weak, even to me. They did a walkthrough. Wren didn't seem to find much. The dresser blocking the door was noted. She dusted for prints, but said it was a mess. Too many to be useful. She did find something, though. A small brown package on the doorstep. It was addressed to me, but the handwriting wasn't mine or anyone I recognized. Inside was my grandfather's watch, the one that was stolen from my apartment years ago when I lived in Boston. I told Wren about Fran, how I hadn't been able to reach her. She took Fran's number down and said she'd try to get in touch. I thought maybe Fran knew something. Maybe she'd seen someone hanging around. Maybe this was all some kind of bizarre, misguided attempt to return stolen property. It didn't make sense. Wren left, promising to patrol the area more frequently. I sat there with the watch, feeling less safe than before. It wasn't about someone breaking in anymore. It was about someone knowing things, intimate things, things that shouldn't be knowable. And Fran still wasn't answering her phone. I tried calling again. Nothing, just the ringing and that empty, expectant silence. It's been years. I don't measure it in years, though. More like layers. Each layer is another avoided street, another glance over my shoulder. I moved, of course, not far, just across town. But I made sure it wasn't a building with shared hallways. That was the worst part, I think. Not the things that happened in the apartment, but the feeling of being funneled, exposed. I haven't spoken to Wren since. She tried a few times, but I kept making excuses. I felt awful, but I couldn't bring myself to explain. How do you explain feeling like someone's meticulously cataloging your life just to remind you they can? It felt monstrous to put that on her. I still get packages, sometimes wrong address, usually things that aren't mine. Small things, a chipped mug, a single glove once, a child's drawing. I just give them to the post office now. I don't open them. I figured for a long time it was Lyle. He was always off, fixated on details. He'd helped me with some repairs once, seemed to know everything about my schedule. Maybe he'd developed an obsession. I avoid antique stores. I used to love them. That watch wasn't just the monetary value. It was my grandmother's, seeing it reappear, then disappear again, just broke something. It wasn't about wanting it back. It was about knowing someone had it. I was at the farmer's market last week, picking out peaches, and there was a man, standing near the fruit stand, just watching. He wasn't doing anything, wasn't looking at me exactly, but he was there, and he was wearing a faded blue baseball cap like Pell used to wear. I don't know why that sticks with me. I don't know what he was doing there. It's strange revisiting this now. Honestly, life moved on. I went to other festivals, had other flat tires, normal things. But a friend asked about it recently, and I realized I'd never actually said the whole story out loud. It wasn't particularly dramatic at the time, just incredibly frustrating, and then unsettling. I suppose writing it down feels like closing a loop, finally. The bass was already thumping when I parked, vibrating through the steering wheel even with the engine off. I killed the headlights and just sat for a minute. It was quieter than I expected, considering a lot of empty space existed between clusters of tents and vendor stalls. I checked the festival map again, trying to get my bearings. Assigned parking was way out on the perimeter, Field 6, which felt distant. That smell was still there, though fainter, metallic, almost coppery. I'd figured it was something to do with the generators, maybe exhaust mixed with the dust. Rural areas always smell like something, right? And the flags, I'd dismissed it as just bad decoration. They weren't wrong, exactly, just off. Like someone had tried to mirror an arrangement and gotten the spacing slightly wrong on one side. I was wrestling with the tent poles when a pickup truck, a beat-up Ford, pulled up alongside me. A guy leaned out the window. Trouble? Just figuring this tent out, I said, feeling a little foolish. Happens to the best of us. Need a hand? He had a friendly enough face, weathered, and a name tag that said Theron, roadside assistance. Roadside assistance at a music festival seemed odd. Actually, yes, I'm a little stuck. He hopped out, all brisk efficiency. He got the tent up in under 5 minutes. Seriously impressive. There you go. Sometimes a fresh pair of eyes is all you need. He didn't ask for payment, just smiled and said, "Enjoy the show." I thanked him, thinking how lucky I was to run into someone like that. Probably a volunteer, keeping things running smoothly. It was a good start. Then I noticed the dent in the side of his truck, a very specific dent, shaped almost exactly like a flagpole. I shook it off, just a coincidence. The flags. I kept noticing them, not just at the festival itself, but everywhere after that. It's stupid, I know. But driving home, I saw one stuck in someone's yard, a faded red one just like the ones at the festival. Then another, smaller one on a mailbox about 30 miles further on. I chalked it up to coincidence, a weird local thing. Rural communities do weird stuff. I stopped for gas in a town I hadn't planned on, and got turned around on the back roads. That's when I saw him again, Theron, leaning against his truck at the convenience store. He waved, just a casual wave like he was saying, "Hey, remember me?" I pretended not to see him, grabbed my coffee and paid, practically ran back to the car. It was probably nothing. He probably lives around here. Roadside assistance, right? He's just working. I took the highway and tried to put distance between us. I drove straight through, barely stopping. I checked my rearview mirror constantly. Nothing. But then, the GPS rerouted me. It said there was an accident on the interstate and suggested a back road, a road I'd already been on, the one with the flags. It felt deliberate, like someone like he knew where I was going and was subtly nudging me back. I ignored it. I'm not superstitious. I'm a practical person. But the rerouting, the flags, and then seeing his truck again, parked a half-mile up the road, just visible through the trees. He wasn't following me exactly. He was already there. I took the next exit. I'm not going to pretend I wasn't scared. I thought maybe he was just trying to be helpful, offering assistance again. Maybe he really is just a good Samaritan who happens to be everywhere I am. I just wanted to get home. I should have kept driving. I stopped for gas in Alma, a tiny town. One gas station, a diner, looked deserted. I needed coffee, badly. The guy behind the counter, Vito, didn't say much. He just nodded when I paid. I was checking my phone, still trying to get a signal, when I heard the engine. That truck, again, parked across the street, the same beat-up Ford. I didn't even look for him. I just knew. I bolted back to the car, fumbling with the keys. He wasn't moving, just sitting there. I pulled onto the highway, took the next right, trying to get back to the main road. The GPS flickered, then rerouted me. Again, not just a slight adjustment, it took me off the highway entirely, onto a dirt road. I swore. I pulled over, trying to reset it, but the screen was frozen. Then I saw it, a roadblock. Not police, just a truck, his truck, blocking the road. He was leaning against it, arms crossed, looking expectant. Like he'd been waiting. My heart hammered. I threw the car into reverse, tires spinning in the gravel. I had to get out. I slammed it into drive, aimed for a gap between the truck and some trees. He moved. Not to block me, but to guide me. A hand signal, slow and deliberate, directing me further down the dirt road. It wasn't aggressive. It was helpful, almost courteous. I didn't understand. Maybe he thought the road was washed out ahead. Maybe he was trying to prevent me from getting stuck. I hesitated, then cautiously followed his direction. The road narrowed. Trees closed in. Then I saw the other trucks. 3 of them parked haphazardly, blocking the way forward, and men, several of them, standing silently watching. Vito was among them. That's when it hit me. This wasn't random. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was a setup, a really elaborate, messed up setup. I was trapped. I sat there, engine off, staring at those trucks. At Vito, it was surreal, like a bad movie. I tried the radio, static, phone, no signal, of course. I got out, slowly, hands up. "What is going on?" I called out. No one answered. They just watched. Theron was the first to move. He walked toward me, slow and deliberate, not threatening, exactly, more curious. He didn't say anything, just held out my wallet. My wallet, I hadn't even realized it was missing. I definitely had it at the gas station. "You drop this," he said, voice flat. I took it, checked the cash. Everything was there, which made it even weirder. He didn't want my money? What did they want? I asked him again. What was happening? He just shrugged and turned back to the others. I drove back to Alma, to the sheriff's office. It was a tiny place, 1 desk, 1 deputy, a woman named Edna. I told her everything. About the flat tire, the guy who helped me, the wrong directions, the trucks, Vito, everything. She listened mostly without expression, occasionally scribbling in a notepad. When I was finished, she looked up. "Sounds like you got taken for a ride, son," she said, with a little chuckle. "Happens to tourists all the time. They prey on folks who don't know the back roads." She took my statement, gave me a card. "If you see them again, call us." It felt dismissive, like she thought I was just an idiot who'd fallen for a simple scam. But this wasn't about the money. It never was. I drove back to the motel, and that's when I noticed it. A small white envelope slipped under my door. No return address. Inside, a single photograph. It was a picture of me, taken earlier that day, at the convenience store. I hadn't noticed anyone taking pictures. And written on the back, in neat block letters, "We know you, Yael." I didn't call the police again. What was I going to tell them? Someone's watching me? They took my picture? It felt pathetic. And they hadn't taken anything. Not really. Just invaded something. I started double-checking the locks. Even at the motel, I looked in the rearview mirror constantly. It was exhausting. Then the calls started. No one was on the other end. Just breathing. Heavy. Deliberate breathing, always late at night. I changed my number, but it didn't matter. They found me again. Same breathing. I started thinking it was Vito. He seemed like the ringleader, the one who enjoyed it. I imagined him sitting in a dark room, just listening to me sweat. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was some kind of elaborate prank, a twisted game. Maybe they were trying to scare me off, hoping I'd just leave and they'd have a good story to tell at the local bar. I even considered going back to the convenience store, trying to confront them. But the thought of running into them, of being completely alone with them again, I couldn't. Alma, the motel owner, started giving me worried looks. She'd ask if I was sleeping okay. I'd force a smile and say everything was fine. I started avoiding people, canceling plans. Even a simple trip to the grocery store felt like a risk. It was like my life had shrunk, everything pulled inwards. I'd check the mail every day, expecting another photograph. It didn't come, but that was almost worse. Now, Before I agree to anything at all, I check the route. I look at satellite views, street views, I read reviews, I search for articles about the area. It's ridiculous, I know, and it's cost me. I missed a friend's wedding last month because the drive went through a stretch of rural highway I didn't feel comfortable with. She didn't understand. She probably thought I was making excuses, but I can't explain it. Just now, the ice machine in the office downstairs sputtered. For a second, it sounded like breathing. I gripped the mug a little tighter, then reminded myself, it's just the ice machine. It always sounds like that.